With regard to the effects that I have just read to you, do you regard those as being health effects?
Not necessarily.
Why not?
We all experience all of these at some point in time. And it's very difficult to determine where a normal reaction to something, a siren going by, an awakening, an odor, a thought, a disturbing thought, whether those reactions have anything to do with health effects, or health damage, or disease, which I define more as an alteration of a structure or function of an organ or system that can impair someone's ability to perform or function at the level they were prior to that. Some of these, as I think you indicated, one could lead to additional problems, but in and of themselves, it's difficult to say that these are diseases or health effects, and an effect implies a cause, so I don't even care to use that terminology.
Mm-hmm. Going back to Roman numeral page Roman numeral 13.
May I interrupt you? I just wanted to add one more comment to my previous answer.
Yeah, go ahead.
I noticed in the beginning of this section that these are not thresholds as we know from toxicology, and they define the contrast between what they are identifying here as thresholds, and they say the observed effect thresholds are provided the level above which an effect starts to occur or shows itself to be dependent on the exposure level. So I understand these thresholds to be levels below which you might not expect to see these things occurring, and at levels increasingly above you would. So
Okay.
in that sense, that's kind of contributes to my notion of this continuum. They're trying to isolate a part where you just don't see any of these things.
Okay. So with regard to your references in your testimony concerning health effects, are the effects listed, or let me start over. In your testimony, you've made some statements that you do not believe there is evidence to show that wind turbine noise causes health effects, right?
Close. I'm not critiquing your phraseology, but I would say that someone will always point to some evidence, and so I think that the way you phrased it might leave us open to that, this cherry-picking notion that you can find a study that says something. But my opinion is, looking at the 68 studies that I reviewed and for quality of study, and synthesizing the results from that body of evidence, yes, it is my opinion that wind turbine noise, as studied up to including 46 decibel at night average, is not associated with any identifiable health effect.
Mm-hmm. And when you expressed those opinions, you were not talking about the types of effects that you see in the WHO report on pages Roman numeral 13 and 14 that are set forth on those tables, correct?
No, I can agree with you as far as the ones you identified, but I would say myocardial infarction is very much a disease. And psychic disorders are very much diseases, and several in that second half of the table.
Okay. So with respect to the effects that I read to you during your testimony, because you don't regard those effects as being health effects, you did not intend your testimony to address these effects.
Maybe I could be clearer. I don't consider these to be reflect harm to health. These are responses to stimuli. We respond various ways to different stimuli and to different extent. These are not diagnosable diseases, that is the ones that you've identified.
Okay. And you're not expressing an expert opinion with regard to the types of effects that I read it to you out of the WHO report.
I think I am. I'm saying that these do not constitute harm to human health.
Okay. Maybe we need to go back to my first question in this line of questioning. In your testimony, you testified that you do not believe there is a relationship between wind turbine noise and adverse health effects. Did I state that correctly?
Close. I'm saying the epidemiological evidence that we have in hand as of this day, 2019, does not support that conclusion using standard methods for critically evaluating and synthesizing the body of evidence.
Okay. And with respect to the opinion that you just enunciated, you were not intending to express that opinion with regard to the types of effects that I read to you out of the WHO report.
I think that's correct, and maybe where we could agree more fully is with respect to complaints, which are subjective reports of individuals' feelings or perceptions, but may not be measurable changes in anything physiologically.
But you have no reason to dispute that complaints start at a level of 35 dBA, right?
I think complaints start at 0. Human nature is to complain, and that the probability of complaints is certainly going to increase with one's ability to perceive and be annoyed by any stimulus.
Okay. But complaints are not health effects, right?
Correct. Well, complaints as in well, they don't define it, unfortunately. You certainly can complain about a serious illness. I'm not including that. But I would say if this is equated with annoyance, then I think we would agree.
Okay, very good. I have no further questions.
Any of the other interveners have questions of this witness?
No.
Redirect.
Your Honor, can we take a minute?
Certainly.
Ahead of redirect.
Why don't we take a 10-minute break?